Hello, everybody. Today we are going to review the show Squid Game, which I just binge watched over the past 3 days. And it was recommended that well, actually, I guess it was recommended by a few people at work that I should really watch this show, and I'm glad that it was recommended to me because, holy crap, that was quite a few twists and turns. Now, I will say that the show was, I guess, somewhat predictable as to who is going to die and who's not, but they don't really let you know how they're going to die. You're just kind of predicting as to who is going to be next. And obviously, who is going to make it through to the end. Now, I find this interesting because it says that there's only going to be. It says that the show was a mini-series on IMDb, but for some reason, I don't really know why, but it looks like there's going to be a second season. From what I see on here, just looking at it. It says episode 2.1, so that means that there's probably going to be a second season. So anyhow, not basically, but this show is people who are in debt, with like massive amounts of debt, and they are offered this chance to play these games, in order to basically get their money back. Now, they don't know what they're signing up for. They think it's just going to be a game, and as they get eliminated, they just kind of go home, sort of thing. Well, that is not the case. So, at the beginning of the show, there's this narration of this game called the Squid Game, where you had to get to the head of the squid, and that was how you won, and there was offense and defense, and the offense had to hop on one foot to get to each location until they were finally at the head of the squid, and the defense had to try to push them out of the squid head once they got to it before they could get to the top of the squid head themselves. And I guess there was no real rules to it. You could use whatever sort of tactics you wanted to, no matter how violent they were, so I guess the game could get a little out of hand depending on who you were playing with, because, yeah, if there were no rules, then anybody could do whatever they wanted, and things get really intense. When they sign up for these games, they're gassed in these cars and taken to this island. They don't know where they are, and eventually it comes to a vote as to quit the games after this red light, green light game that they're playing, where this tall robot type, I guess, this tall robot woman turns her head back and forth, and if there's any movement after she says red light, then you're eliminated. Meanwhile, nobody really knowing at the time that the first person was actually legitimately shot, they think that he's just like goofing around. And then when the second guy gets shot, everybody knows for real, and it started out with 456 players in the first game and went down to 201. So that's when they decide to vote upon it as to who wants to go and who wants to stay and who wants to leave. Eventually, it comes down to a tie, and one of the characters, the older man, decides that he is going to send everybody home. Even though some people want to stay, they all get sent home, and then I guess owners of the game, or the people who are creating the game, say that anybody who wants to come back can come back of their own free will at any time, so they're given a new card with a new number on it to call, and go back to the island to replay the game from where they left off. So the main character here is Sung Ji-han. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Played by Lee Jung-jae. And then we have Cho Sang-woo, played by Park Hee-so, or Hae-so, Park Hae-so maybe. And then we have Hwang Jun-ho, who was played by Lee Han-jun. I hope I'm at least getting these names close. And then Kang Sae-baek, I believe was her name, played by Jung Ho-won, and the old man was Oh Il Nam, played by Oh Young Soo. So there we go. And they had people from all over the place. Uh, one of the guys, played by Anupam Tripathi, I want to say, played Ali Abdul. Oh my God, that's easier to say than the first name. I think I would be able to get that. And Tom Choi played the front man, who seemed to be like the main owner of the game, I guess, kind of bringing in the VIPs at the very end, who were all these people betting on who was going to win. And at the very beginning of the show, Ji-hun is actually betting on horses, so that's where he accumulated most of his debt from, was gambling, and he obviously has a problem, and there's people after him who he owes money to, so I'm not really sure at the end of the show, I'm not really sure at the end of the show how he somehow got away with not having to pay them back. I'm not really sure what happened to them exactly, but anyhow, it seems that him and Sang-woo are friends. I believe they're friends anyway. It's kind of hard to tell because it almost made it sound like they were brothers at one point, but I don't think they were. I think they were just friends. And Sang-woo ends up going completely insane by the end of it because he just wants all the money for himself. He's like 9 point something billion dollars in debt, so pretty crazy amount. He's wanted by the police. The police are looking for him, and this one cop actually is able to get onto the island, posing as one of the employees of this game that they're putting on, and he keeps changing who he is, so he almost gets caught quite a few times. And then I kind of predicted that the front man was going to be his brother, and I was right. And he ends up getting shot by his own brother, so that would kind of suck for sure. And one of the other characters that I really liked was, I believe it was Doc Soo, played by Paul Nakuchi. Now, he looks nothing like he did in the show, which is kind of funny, because he had longer hair in the show. If I'm thinking of the right guy, I'm pretty sure I am. Oh, there were 2 people that played the front man? That's weird. Tom Choi and Lee Bang-hun both played the front man. That's interesting. So anyway, basically they're approached by this guy at the very beginning, and they're offered to play like this game where he gives them a certain amount of money for each time they win a round, and every time they don't win a round, he just gets to give them a free slap. And I guess he takes a certain amount of money off of what they would owe him for each slap he gives them, so eventually Ji-hun is able to win that game, and then he's offered to up his money amount in these other games. Eventually they all do leave the island though, like I said, and most of them go back of their own free will. Quite a few of them, I think, over 100 of them, I do believe. And these games are just get more and more intense with each one. So one of them was tug of war, so you're teamed up in you're put in teams of 10, or you get to choose 10 people that you want to be with, and you have to tug the other team off of the stand. And the last game was probably one of the more intense ones, where you had to cross a bridge, and each pane of glass, one of them was tempered, one of them was regular, and obviously quite a few people chose wrong, and it ended up being only 3 of them by the end of it. And then Sang-woo kills Sebek at the end anyway, so it ends up just being Jihan and Sangwoo. And then Sangwoo kills himself and tells Jihan to take care of his mother, which I did not see coming. And Jihan really does nothing with the money for a full year, and then decides to kind of, I guess, use it after he finds out that Ilhan is still alive. And I guess Ilhan was the man that nobody ever really saw. Even though he played the games, I guess he faked his own death in order to make it look like he had died. Obviously in Jihan's eyes, because he wanted to make him feel some sort of guilt, I guess, in that part where they were doing the marbles thing and he just kept tricking him. And then Ilhan dies right in front of him after making one final bet with him. And he said he just wanted to do it for the fun. He basically got a bunch of people rich off of whatever he was doing, and they had no more fulfillment in their lives, so him and his friends got together and said, what can we do for fun? And they decided to create these games and bring people in from, I guess, many different places. I guess Korea wasn't the only place that they had held these games in, so yeah, I don't know how many countless people they've actually murdered, and I'm not really sure if they hold it in the same spot every time. Obviously, they must switch up locations, but in order not to get caught, because, yeah, it was just crazy. Anyhow, I would definitely give this show, well, I give this show a 9 out of 10, because the ending ticked me off a little bit. Jihan could have easily just gotten onto the plane and left Korea and went to the States to start a new life and see his daughter, but instead he decides to, actually he sees the guy that he was playing the game against in the very beginning of the show, before he actually went on to this island to compete, and he tells this other guy that was playing with him not to go and takes the card away from him and calls the card, and they say player 456 because that was the prize pool of money, was 456 billion because there was 456 players, and that was the total, I guess, altogether that everybody owed in debt, so pretty crazy amount. And Jihan is able to win it all, and instead of just getting on the plane, he decides to turn around and go back into Korea. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing, man? You were free. I don't know why you would ever want to go back. So it kind of looks like it's setting up for him to go back and play again in the second season, which I find quite interesting. What were some of the other games? Oh, there was one where they had to, like, cut the shape out of some sort of, what was it, some sort of food, or, yeah, I can't really remember what it was. They had to cut a shape out of something. That was one of the more intense ones, I think, because you weren't sure who was going to be able to do it and who wasn't. There was lots of betrayal in this show, for sure, and the one scene with the riot in the room was just absolutely nuts. Once the players found out they could kill one another in order to get ahead, I think that would have been really bad, or could have ended the game right there, because there was just like this huge riot and a whole bunch of players died just from that. So anyhow, that is really all there is to say about the show. I give this show a 9 out of 10. I thought it was really good. Just the ending. The ending of that season, he should have just gotten on the plane and left. He was free. Why would you go back to probably play the game all over again? I guess maybe to let, I guess maybe to help people with the game, but I have a feeling that he's not going to make it through the second season if there is one. So, but we'll see. Anyhow, good show. Highly recommend highly recommend watching it. It is on Netflix, and I guess one thing I heard was that if you watch it dubbed, you're really missing out on quite a bit of the character development. So I would say if you could watch it with subtitles, definitely do it that way, because it does, I'd say it shows the emotion better in the characters. And I guess the dubbed version, some of the subtitles are way off from what they're actually saying, according to a lot of people. from what I've heard. So yeah, watch it in its original language and leave the subtitles on, because even when they're speaking English, because parts of it are in English and parts of it are in Korean. So if you are watching it with subtitles, I would say that you'll even notice some of the words are a little bit off, but at least it's better than, probably much better than watching the whole thing dubbed, I would say. So yeah, I think that's all. That's it. That's all I have to say about the show. So as always, like, share, subscribe, and comment down below your thoughts on this film, or thoughts on this show, if you've seen it. If not, I highly recommend going to watch it. It's worth the watch if it hasn't been completely ruined for you yet, or if you're wondering where all the memes are coming from. At least now I'll be able to understand some of them. So anyhow, that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye for now.